Now, I recently over on X or Twitter, depending on what you want to call it, made another banger of a tweet if you ask me. And side note, if you guys don't already follow me on Twitter or X, follow me at Devoted Dividend and I'll follow all you guys back. Just either message me or tweet at me and say you're from YouTube. But my tweet says, here's the perfect 10 position portfolio. And this is more or less what I would consider a perfect portfolio if I were to know what I know now after 8 years of dividend investing and start over tomorrow. Now, as a side note, there's plenty of different perfect quote unquote portfolios out there. So if I ever use the term perfect portfolio, realize that in my opinion, there's so many different options out there. But inside my perfect 10 position portfolio, I offer 10 different holdings that I think could not only complement, but even overlap each other sort of to create a perfect portfolio that offers a ton of income potential from day one, but also a massive potential for growth. So in this video, we're going to go over and look at every single one of the 10 holdings that I personally think can make up a quote unquote perfect portfolio with 10 positions in all. So if you want to dig into this with me, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. If you are a dividend investor who wants to level up your portfolio, you need to be tracking your dividend income consistently. And that's why I created the perfect dividend tracker that I've used to scale my dividend income up to all-time highs over the last year. Now, along with this dividend tracker, you're also going to receive my A to Z dividend investing ebook, which shows you how I personally started from $0 several years ago to now where I earn over $7,500 per month in dividends. So if you want this tracker and the ebook, go to the first link down below in my description and grab it today. So the first position in this quote unquote perfect portfolio would have to be SPY or the SPDR S&P 500 ETF Trust. Now, the reason I would include this in the perfect portfolio is because in the perfect portfolio, I of course would want a decent amount of exposure to the S&P 500. Now, this is because I want exposure to some of the best, largest companies across the entire world, and the S&P 500's performance has been so hard to outperform for good reason. Now, although you could even argue that a portfolio 100% of this holding could be enough to make a ton of returns in the future, that's a good argument. But again, in the context of a 10 position portfolio, I would of course include 10% of the portfolio being the S&P. Now, on the other side of the S&P, I would also want to have 10% of the portfolio to be invested in the Invesco QQQ. And this is because this ETF, I think, is going to offer a ton of growth potential in the future, just like it has historically. I mean, if you look at this compared to even the S&P, which have both done amazing over the past several years, QQQ is very, very hard to outperform. Now, again, this is not going to be an income-focused position. This is going to be a growth monster, or at least potentially. So in 10% of the portfolio, I would 100% at QQQ. Now, inside the portfolio, I also want to have some income-focused positions. That's because even though as an investor at 32 years old, I do have a long time horizon as far as investing goes, at least hopefully. But over the years, I want exposure to high income because I want to use my dividends distributions before I get super old to pay for things like bills, vacations, or of course to help out family and friends. So that's why I would include the NEOS S&P 500 High Income ETF, an ETF that utilizes an option strategy, but along with that, invests in the constituents of the S&P. So more S&P exposure here, but you're sort of getting it in a high income matter. Which, speaking of a high income matter, I would also invest 10% of the portfolio into QQQI, which is the same thing as SPYI, only in this case, instead of S&P, you're looking at the NASDAQ. Once again, an ETF that's going to offer a high income potential from day one, and the distributions have proved that so far. And like I said, because I am sort of a hybrid investor, I don't necessarily want only exposure to growth. I also don't want only exposure to income. I would like to have a little bit of Qs, a little bit of S&P, and then some income-oriented ETFs that basically utilizes both of them. Now, also along with that, my number 5 position, 10% of the portfolio, would have to be in the JP Morgan Nasdaq Equity Premium Income ETF, another ETF that offers Nasdaq exposure. But along with that, JEPQ has the potential to grow and to pay income from day one. This ETF has been in my portfolio since inception, basically. It's paid me a ton every single month, and it's not let me down whatsoever. So this would have to remain in the portfolio if I was building out a 10 position portfolio, the perfect one at that. JEPQ would definitely make the list. Another ETF that would have to make the list is one of my favorite dividend growth style ETFs across the entire market. We're talking about SEHD, which offers a decent starting yield at around 3.5%, offers a ton of growth potential, but also offers massive dividend growth, or has historically. SEHD is going to give the portfolio some stability and hopefully, like I said, offer growing dividends for several years. Now, because I am sort of a hybrid investor interested in income, but also interested in growth, this ETF has grown to one of the largest ETFs in my long-term portfolio as of right now, which stay tuned, you guys. I'll share with you guys my actual portfolio at the end. But without a doubt, SHD would have to make it in the top 10 if I was building a perfect portfolio, along with the next ETF in the list, SCHG, which is also from Schwab. But this ETF doesn't offer much income. It offers a ton of growth potential from day one. I mean, this ETF's performance speaks for itself, up around 17% year after year since inception, with some years being as high as 40% return. SCHG is definitely an ETF that I'm going to be adding to my portfolio in real life, but also if I were to build out a 10 position portfolio, I would definitely without a doubt have SCHG in the portfolio. Next, a few more positions to build out the perfect portfolio. I would have to include some shares of Apple stock. Now, as of right now, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, I currently own 1,001 shares of Apple stock, and I bought most of my shares of Apple in 2020 or 2021 at an average cost of around $118 per share. Apple's definitely been one of my best investments to date across all the investments I've ever made since I've been born. But on top of that, Apple as a single stock or as a company, I think Apple could continue to be one of the most important companies of our entire lifetime. So for that reason alone, as far as single stock picking, which I'm not the biggest fan of, honestly, especially in my 8th year of investing right now, I pretty much buy ETFs and chill. But Apple stock would 100% be in the 10 position perfect portfolio without a doubt. Now, another single stock that would have to be in this portfolio, the 10 position portfolio, maybe surprising some of you guys, would have to be Nvidia. Now, over the years, I've purchased Nvidia, I've swung traded it, and I've made some money off of this single stock, but I have not made as much money as, of course, some investors have. Now, I would have been better off just buying into Nvidia when I first started investing and never buying another single stock or ETF and just sat on my shares, etc. But even though I didn't do that, I still would include this stock in the 10 position portfolio just because, again, sort of like Apple, for a single stock, I do believe in this company quite a bit, and I think it's going to continue to change the world. And speaking of changing the world, the last position that I would add into this 10 position portfolio, you guys are probably going to be surprised by this, but it'd probably be a 10% position of Bitcoin. Now, as of right now, I currently don't have any Bitcoin in my portfolios. I have some Ethereum, but I'm what you pretty much call a no coiner. Now, I don't have anything against Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general. I'm a huge fan of it. I guess I was just sort of unlucky and didn't buy it when a lot of others did. But in the perfect portfolio, a 10 position portfolio, I don't see why I wouldn't add a 10% position in Bitcoin. Honestly, probably more of like a 5% position, but just for the video's sake, I would add a 10% position to Bitcoin. So now that we went through the perfect portfolio in my eyes, or at least one of the perfect portfolios, a 10 position portfolio, different single stocks, different ETFs, and even a little bit of Bitcoin. This right here is my long-term portfolio made up of different single stocks and ETFs. And some of the names we talked about in today's video for the perfect portfolio are in here, but some of them aren't. And this is simply because there are certain names that I'm willing to buy at a certain price point, and or there's certain names in this portfolio that I'm willing to sell off. And honestly, I don't consider my portfolio right here the perfect portfolio. I consider this a work in progress that I'm consistently trying to make better year after year. Now, also, whether or not a portfolio is good or bad is also going to partially be up to the portfolio's owner and, of course, his or her objectives, strategies, risk profile, etc. So even though my portfolio is not the perfect portfolio, it's pretty close to perfect for what I'm looking for. So now that we went through a 10 position portfolio and I share with you guys what I think could be the perfect portfolio, I want you guys to ask a question and answer it down below in the comments. If I were to ask you to make a one stock, one ETF, or one cryptocurrency holding portfolio and hold on to that forever, which position would you hold on to forever and why? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. Thanks as always for stopping by. And if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.